Thanks for coming, guys.
Cool. Yes.
I mean, it's fun when we realize we have to bribe people to be our friends by offering wine, but it's whatever. Did you forget coffee again, Mike?
No, it's next one.
I forgot.
So anyone who was looking forward to coffee was part of the plan. I mean, we're going to talk about the MyZone today. I said it's going to be a 20-minute thing. I'm going to try to speed through this as quick as possible. Anybody who knows me I don't have that firm of a grasp on the English language, so I have to use a lot of words to make simple points. And I also wish we had a video of when I was shooting this, because I didn't have a picture of the MyZone. So I asked Emma to help me, and she's in the background. I had to blur the whole thing, because she's like, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't get the reference, it's your problem. So
That's how I feel about the MyZone.
I guess it could have multiple meanings. Nat, I love my daughter. She's the best. She's good like 97% of the time, except for when I have a talk. She woke up at like 3:45 this morning, so we're gonna do our best here. So anyone who's on the newer end here, or just who doesn't know as many of our members, everyone is batshit crazy.
Yep.
We're also pretty damn strong, and we like to party. If you can't tell, there's wine in all those glasses. So, I mean, told you made the cut. So, I mean, none of this matters. The MyZone doesn't matter unless you really have taken the time to set your goal. So, how many people here have gone through the goal-setting process based on one of the talks we did? Yes, even if you're lying, you're making me happy right now. If you haven't yet, make sure you talk to a coach. It's a simple process, but you want to make sure you go through step by step, and you not only work from your long-term goal backwards to short-term goals and things you can do on a day-to-day basis. So everyone is here pretty much for just a few reasons: to move better and feel better, to perform better, or to look better. So MyZone, I mean, there's a few different reasons we use it, but one of the main things that I really like about it is people fall into one of two categories. They either trend towards wanting to lay around and do a little bit of nothing, or they always have that crazy look in their eyes and we're afraid they're going to exercise until they hemorrhage. Yeah, that's a get up. So why does so this picture is never going to go away. Yes, it's disturbing on many levels, but I want to go through just the things that are, Joe says yes, just the things that matter here. So what matters? Nutrition matters, movement matters, and recovery matters. You know, some of the things that the foundation of what we're going to be doing here, really the key to this whole process and the whole idea behind the MyZone comes down to a few principles. So one is motor skill acquisition. In simple terms, we get a baseline of your movement, and we help you go through certain drills to restore movement or acquire new motor skills. That also applies to anything where you're learning a new skill like a kettlebell swing or a get up, or even improving your deadlift. Another principle that's super important is going to be work capacity, and one portion of it that really matters is positional strength endurance. So if you think of things like being able to spend more time in half kneel, or be in a certain position in a loaded carry for a longer period of time. And as much as we don't talk about it a ton, aerobic capacity matters too. So yes, that's cardio. The master skill that really matters more than everything, not only just here because it's what we do, also because it's what's going to make everything easier, is strength. That's one of the most badass faces ever in a picture, by the way. So if anyone's wondering where I got my charm from, that's my father. His name is Freedom. I mean, the point behind this is, like, anytime we try to go down one lane, you know, there's people that can be in different camps. I mean, if you're here, the assumption is that you already believe in a lot of what we do, but people tend to get pissed off when we say certain things aren't appropriate. So if we say cardio shouldn't be your main focus, or we want you to work harder for this reason, or not as hard for this reason, people who have strong beliefs behind a certain exercise philosophy, they tend to get upset. That's his happy face. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that there's only one way to do these things, but I can tell you that we're going to base a lot of it off the sun. Oh, I messed up the timing. But even though there's not one way to do this, we can take two different approaches. So we could go by time-based in terms of your exercise. We could give you sets and reps. We could tell you how long to rest. We prefer to use fancier tools because they give us more exact information. Time-based, if you're somebody who trends a little more towards the not wanting to work so hard side, you're going to rest longer. If you're somebody who tends to work a little too hard, you're going to not rest enough. That's what I thought was coming before. We just want to base this all off of science. We don't want to guess. So we're going to keep things as light as possible when we're here and we're interacting with you. This is probably the most serious you'll ever see me get. But when it comes down to your process, we want to have actual data and actual reasons why we do everything. So if anyone here's goal is fat loss, and 95% plus of our people at some point during their membership, they want to focus on fat loss. There's certain things that matter. So in terms of that concept of EPOC or the afterburn, what we're doing is we're going after strength training as your primary method of exercise, and we're stacking the movements together in a certain way so that we can boost your metabolism for a longer period of time. Anyone who's heard some of our talks before knows that, yes, cardio can burn the same amount of calories as strength training, but it doesn't burn calories for as long after. So this style of training where we couple a strength move with a core or corrective move and an opposing strength move or a complementary non-competing strength move, it's going to boost your metabolism for longer. I don't remember why that's there. So, now I remember.
Move the mic to center. You want to go in the bathroom and do it. Okay.
Do I have to like lift my shirt up? Isn't it weird?
If you want help.
No, Joe. Is that better? Okay. We're a tight family here. So, as we start to stack these things together, I want you guys to have actual information you can use to start to apply to each workout and to start to apply to your entire program and make changes right away. So one of the things that we do is, we mentioned before, movement restoration or acquisition of motor skill. Positions like half kneeling, exercises like halos, they have a lot of corrective properties. The one cool thing about it is you can continue to work, and by taking advantage of some of the postural effect of heart rate, as you get further away from standing, it can actually allow you to continue to work, but allow that heart rate to come back down. And as you're starting to focus on some of the more skill-based movements, or what we'll call like your big lifts, which tend to be more of your lower body lifts, like your split squats or back lunges you see on the right there, if you want to make sure that we take advantage of that heart rate effect, you can actually stack your more corrective-based exercises right before it, so we can bring the heart rate down enough to fall into that zone where you can acquire a new motor skill. Now, I didn't forget, I just don't actually have a reason that's there. So I don't need you to be able to read this. We'll give you access to this. The general concepts and the way everything is structured in terms of MyZone, I very much believe in the system, or else I wouldn't use it. Some of the things I don't like about it is how they say reward, actually it's not even on this one, but they say effort rewarded. I can't say that. So what they're saying is the harder you work and as you earn more and more points, it's giving you the assumption that you're actually doing a better job. Now, that's not true for long, and we'll give you some practical examples in a second. So just the general zones, red is your 90 to 100%, yellow is your 80 to 89, and green is your 70 to 79, then going down blue, gray, and I guess light gray. I just take a lot of pictures of my daughter. She's going to hate me when she's like 12. So, what's that? Sure. I'm not working that shit. Oh, okay. So anyway. I didn't catch on. I thought you wanted me to photograph it. So, the first thing we want you to do with your MyZone Heart Rate Monitor, how many people have one already? Yes. How many people don't have one? Cool.
Wow.
We could still be friends. Rob and I freaked out because we forgot to check the inventory of MyZone. we're good.
I guess they're gonna be 22.
I'm kind of pissed that I just ordered 20. So the first thing we want everyone to do, how many people have actually tested their resting heart rate?
What do you mean test? Just do it.
So do you know how to check it with the MyZone?
You just wake up in the morning and don't do anything.
That's part of it, but you did that?
Yeah. in the
So then
beginning.
raise your hand. So how many people have tested it? How many people have not tested it? Cool. So if you want all of your metrics, all the information the MyZone gives you to be more accurate, you're going to want to test your resting heart rate, and you're going to want to do it on a pretty regular basis. I mean, I would say once a month isn't necessarily. If you're not checking it once a quarter, like you don't have accurate information. If you really want to be on top of your stuff and you follow advice like keep a food journal and get measurements on the in-body on a regular basis, I highly recommend that you do this every 4 to 8 weeks, checking your resting heart rate. So you wake up in the morning, you take the MyZone belt. You should actually have the unit, the belt, and your phone, which has the app on it. And if it doesn't, you can download it. You should have it right by your bed, so you don't. What's that?
Unless you have a Windows phone, then you don't get it.
Unless you have a Zach Morris phone.
Who has a Windows phone?
Wow.
It's due for an upgrade.
You're the 0.1%.
So you're telling me I'm special?
Something like that. So you want to have all that stuff by your bed, and first thing in the morning, like if you have kids, obviously let's make sure somebody's taking care of them. We don't want anyone like lighting the house on fire. But don't get out of bed, put on the belt, put the unit on, open the app on your phone, and make sure it's connected, right? And then you just lay there for 10 minutes. It's funny how many people have like told me they freaked out laying there for 10 minutes. Okay, you're not those people, but people are like, I can't lay there for 10 minutes. No, we obviously have some shit to work on. So we want to get your resting heart rate to start. So we're going to go into some practical examples. If anyone doesn't know Jess is a badass. She also likes to steal $1,500 from us because she just won, was the female winner of our challenge. She does some pretty cool stuff. So I asked her permission to go over some of her heart rate trends. Now, I'll give you an idea on some of the numbers here. The zone that we want everybody in is 110 to 140 for the number of MEPs that you get in a workout. There are certain situations if you're focused, unless you have a heart rate of a corpse like Jody. She gets to like woo once a month. So you want to be in that 110 to 140 range. If your focus is more on the conditioning side and you don't have a ton of heavy load in your workout, you can get up to 150, but that should not be most of your workouts. Think 110 to 140 is your zone. So if we use 110 to 140, we have 1, 2, 3 workouts where she went over. If it says something like 142 or 141 and it's longer than the workout time, I'm not counting that, right? So before the challenge, this is where she was. She was in a pretty good place. Then during the challenge, she went a little crazy. So every single workout she did was over the zone. So when she finished the challenge, what she had to do was she had to go and get a movement screen done. So I'm telling you to stay in the 110 to 140 range. And I'm also telling you the person that won the challenge went outside of it. But we have to understand why she was able to do that successfully, the fact that she did it for a short period of time, and that then she put a ton of work in after to make sure that she didn't actually put herself in the hole in terms of her nervous system or backtrack all the work she's done in terms of her movement. So one of the things I mentioned earlier was motor skill acquisition. So fixing stuff, if we want to keep it simple, right? You can't fix stuff if your heart rate's too high. You can't acquire a new motor skill. If you use logic, it makes sense. If you're too tired, you're not going to be able to focus on your movements. Anyone who's done some new stuff here, they notice as they get more.
You ever see a runner on the side of the street who looks like they're dying? Or you look forward when they're dying, right? Their heart rate's too high, they can't do the motor skill anymore. They should be ready.
I wish you would have ran by when you said it.
I see one every morning when I work.
Can you take your picture tomorrow?
No, but seriously, you ever see somebody running and they look like they're in pain? And they're not all people that are running in pain, because running's not inherently bad. Like Rob's saying, they're just going outside of that zone. So they can't maintain good form anymore. So what did Jess do when she went outside of that zone? She scheduled a goal chat. Oh, she's a little crazy too. But she scheduled a goal chat right away. And then, because she had to kind of pivot and change gears. and she also got a movement screen done. What we noticed was her trunk stability was off. So anyone who's done the movement screen, that's the thing where you do the pushy stuff off the ground and you have to keep everything together. That's not an issue for her. Like, she's been pretty good with that for a while. So what happened by going outside of the zone we recommend you go into, she actually backtracked her movement. So after we chatted, if we look here, the only time she went outside the zone, I actually don't count either of them. It's really only one where she went above 150 because she had it on for an hour. Our workouts are 50 minutes. So she probably just didn't take it off in time. So moral of the story with this, if we're looking at trends, as you analyze, if you go into your MyZone app, you can actually look at the calendar, and we can help you afterwards if you're not sure how to use it. But you can look at the calendar and look at each workout. So how can we start to apply this to something that makes sense for you? First of all, go into the calendar and actually name your workouts. So if you're somebody that does small group, day 1, day 2, not blue or green.
It says on the board.
Did you write? I tried to erase it and it won't come off.
Wait a minute, you gotta think of a different name every time.
That was one of my goals.
What?
That's difficult.
No, you don't have to name it like Sally and Ralph, like just day 1, day 2.
Okay,
Blue or green.
all right, day 1.
If you want to give it like cute little pet names, you can. But I mean, if you come here, it's as simple as day 1, day 2, team, right? If you do a workout outside of here, just give some information. So why is that important? It gives the coaches something to talk to you about. We're going to have more information, and we're going to be able to look at trends. So how do we really start to use this? One practical example, if somebody's trying to drop fat, they get on the in-body and they are not progressing the way they want to. I want to see their MyZone trends, so I want to see where their effort levels are, and I want to see a food journal. And if they're not food journaling, I don't want you to go Rain Man on me and start listing everything. I want you to just start food journaling, even just for a short period of time. So if we have your measurements telling us you're not going where you want to, right, in terms of body composition, we can look at your effort levels over time, and you've named the workouts, we can actually potentially identify that maybe one of the workouts, you're not working hard enough, or you're working too hard. You know, there's different choices in the workout, and if Mike and I have done it pretty successfully lately. He actually started it off just working with somebody and just picking the things that they needed to do to get into the appropriate zone. So half kneel halo, for example, might be too much for somebody because going overhead is a challenge. Maybe they need to try an AR press, right? So we can do it to tell you to up your intensity. We can also do you to tell you to back off of it. So does that make sense so far? So, the next time you come in, it'll link up. And that's why if you do a workout like that, we want to just make sure that you actually give some information. Like I went bike riding for X amount of time, moderate intensity, just basic stuff. So we can look at general trends in terms of effort. We can also look at individual workouts. So I gave the example before. I mentioned how our system is put together so that you can burn fat. It's also the same thing. All the things you need to do to move better on a basic level are actually the same exact principles you need to follow to drop fat. It's also the same principles you need to follow for baseline strength. I'm not talking trying to surge in a specific lift or powerlifting. So if we stack movements together the right way, we can prevent this from happening, where somebody is living in the yellow and red the whole time. Now, why is that bad? Other than the fact that it's going to degrade your movement, which puts you at potential risk of injury, and also just taxes your nervous system more, which means that this process just might not be sustainable for you. It's also just going to make it so that if you're up in the red early in the workout, you have a tough time recovering later on, because the heart rate effect is cumulative. So if we spike too soon and then don't drop back down, you're going to live in the red and yellow at the end of your workout. Make sense to everyone? Don't worry, there's more wine. So how can we take advantage of that? We can take, if you're going to set up for a move like you see in the background there, a single leg deadlift, that takes a lot of, it's just more challenging for the nervous system because most people actually just aren't very good on one leg. So it's going to take a move that's more challenging for the nervous system. It's also going to allow you, it's also going to take something that's just a little more skill-based and taxing. You can take a movement like the open half kneel plank and do it right before. So we can, instead of just resting and wasting time, we can be productive by working on something that can help improve movement and will actually help your stability in the single leg deadlift. So we continue to work, accomplish some of the things you're here to accomplish, but bring the heart rate back down so that that single leg deadlift is easier to accomplish. We cool there? So this is one of her, the workout I showed before was one of Jess's workouts during the challenge. This is one after. She still gets after it. She still goes hard. She's still peaking up into the yellow at points in her workout. But this one, can I see total? So she was at 123. She was right in the zone we wanted her to be in terms of MEPs. And do you see how she didn't start to live in the yellow until the end of the workout? Because she allowed herself to recover and come back down. So, this is, I mean, I don't expect you to be able to take all of this today and not need any help with it. What I want is I want this to start some actual conversations. So I've had conversations with quite a few people, a handful of people, on specifically just guiding them in terms of their MyZone, giving them more specific direction. I've been doing it for, I mean, specifically with this probably since last August, just to make sure I wasn't full of shit as we started to roll this out to everybody. It works really well. Their results are just as good, if not better, and they're some of the stronger people we have here. So bottom line is just talk to a coach. You know, the one thing that we want to make sure too is that we don't start to apply all this fancy stuff when you haven't flipped the switch yet. So all these things don't really matter, right? So if you haven't decided to progress towards a goal, I don't really care what your MEPs are. Because what are we working towards? We're not going to measure a bunch of stuff if you're not trying to work towards a goal, right? So let's say you're somebody who hasn't figured out what they want to accomplish yet, or hasn't figured out the X's and O's of that, and haven't really just started to make headway and actually really decide to make a change. We should probably focus on that first. We should focus on setting your goal and being clear about it and being realistic about the path. You also might be somebody who just needs to take a break, right? You may have crushed your goal, you may have surged towards it and fell short. You just might be mentally fried and not able to really put everything in right now. That's okay too. It's not necessarily the time to focus on all the X's and O's. In those situations, it's cool to just come in, have fun, and use the MyZone as a tool to just make sure you don't go too far, right? But we don't have to be crazy about it. You want to get 160 MEPs and sweat and slam some medicine balls because you wanted to kill somebody and it's better than killing them? Cool, rock out. I just made eye contact with someone on purpose. I'm not going to say who it was. But if you want to just come in and get a good sweat and not care about the science stuff, like, that's cool. Just understand that then when we get on that machine, we can't blame anyone else that it's not progressing the way you want to if you're not using the tools that we ask you to use. So either one's okay, but just make sure you're honest with yourself about what you're trying to do. If that bored you to tears, it's cool. We have a bunch more wine. So before we kind of break up, let's just go with some questions.
Where does our MEPs measure in terms of if your goal is not necessarily fat loss, it's to gain muscle?
Okay. So it's going to be pretty much the same to start. So if we think of, we'll put performance and muscle gain in the same, we can't really put them in the same category. So if we talk about gaining muscle, there's some traditional bodybuilding things that are actually pretty tried and true. Staying a little higher in terms of volume and in each set, and also higher volume in your workouts. Like, those things work. So that 8 to 12 range for a lot of people for muscle building at certain phases in their program is going to work great. In that situation, like, staying in 110 to 140 is going to be the right place to be. If your goal is more on the performance side, or you're somebody who's done that 8 to 12 reps thing for a while and you've gained some muscle and maybe hit a plateau, you might want to go a little lower in terms of reps and increase the intensity. So you might want to be starting to live, some of you might have done this already, in that 3 to 5 rep range, right? And going a little heavier. In those situations, it's more taxing short term on the nervous system, you need more rest. So if it's something like that and we're surging towards strength or taking a slightly different path towards trying to gain muscle, then yeah, we're going to want the MEPs to actually be lower. Like, I'll actually share my trends as I start to get into my barbell program. Like, leading up to it, it's going to be a lot of 110 to 140, and then you're going to see numbers like 60 and 70, and it's going to look like I'm doing nothing. because it's 3 to 5 minutes of rest in between, or just very low intensity stuff. Does that answer your question? Any other questions?
When you get towards the end of the workout and it's right before the finisher and your MEPs are at 139, do you not do the finisher?
It depends. So if you're somebody who you notice over time, because some of this, we're giving general guidelines, you might be somebody who is able to sustain 150, 155 MEPs a little easier than someone else. So if you can do that once in a while and have it not be a big deal, like you're gonna know that by how do you feel, are you sore, are you getting movement screens often, and is your movement backtracking? So if you're one of the outliers that's okay to do on a regular basis or a semi-regular basis, don't worry about it. If you're somebody who's a pain person or has a stubborn movement issue, which is a lot of our people here, I would recommend then scaling back and taking advantage of the postural effect in terms of heart rate. So let's say do something in half kneel instead of standing. Maybe go quadruped and crawl or do a mountain climber where your heart rate effect isn't going to get as high, but you're going to actually still be able to work. And if you're just totally fried and you're somebody who's been dealing with some stuff, turn some Indian clubs, do some cars exercises, treat it as more recovery or like a cool down. Does that answer your question? Cool. Anyone else?
I'm gonna go to flip it to the opposite side, because that's my problem.
Cool.
I'm not as good as you. I'm close. And I have a really, Mike's been working with me to get to 90s, and I'm working.
Yeah.
I still don't.
So there's going to be different situations, and we'll keep picking on you, Jody. Jody has a long history of long distance running and soccer. You're just not going to spike. She's just not going to spike her heart rate. I actually spoke to her about how we can start to test readiness in terms of grip strength. Right, so we can check her nervous system, have a little peek into it a different way. Someone like you, Sam, we might want to just test a little bit and see if there's certain things that can spike you, depending on what your goal is. So if we're surging towards that 300-pound deadlift actively.
No, I'm going back. I've been watching this. I think we talked last
Yep.
when I wasn't doing. I'm down with what I'm doing. 3 to 5 and resting.
Yep.
It's even in class to get to 90
Gotcha.
during.
So then you're going to want to.
Swing challenge with time like that to probably 110.
Yeah, so you're going to want to look at your overall trends. You might be somebody who your 110 is 100. I'll work with you on that. It also, you might have to just take advantage of making different choices in terms of exercise. I was working with Kev on it, long history of cardio stuff, right? And we had, at that time, it was just all loaded sled stuff. That was the only thing that got him there. We had him strapped up to harnesses, dragging the sled, sandbag over his shoulder. We just had to find the things that got him to where he needed to be. It's a little guess and check. So find those things. Some people, if they swings will get them there, they're pretty efficient at the hinge. Without going super high volume, it's not going to. What about ropes? What about doing a squat to ropes? Jody the other day, she could back lunge with a rope all day, which makes sense because she plays soccer. And if anyone doesn't understand what that means, lunging and running are very similar in mechanism. Squatting and doing the ropes got her up into yellow. So you just have to keep trying different things. Let's chat after. Does that start to answer it then? So for anyone who's in that situation or might be in the future, it might be your range needs to be altered, or we just haven't found the right choices.
Can we set up a meeting with one of you? How do we get started?
First thing I recommend is to make sure that you actually do the things we asked you to do. Test your resting heart rate and wear it, name your workouts. Please do the stuff that makes it easier for us. Outside of that, try to talk to us after a session. And if we're super busy with scheduling and stuff, we always, and there's people in this room that know it, we always make time for a 15-minute chat with people. This is part of, you guys don't pay for X amount of sessions. You guys pay for what you need to get to your goal. There are obviously certain boundaries. We're not going to come cook for you. But yeah, I will, but I'm not that good at it and it's expensive. But yeah, try to catch us after a session first, and then if not, let's schedule a time.
You have to do the resting heart rate in the morning.
You can do it in the evening. I don't recommend it.
Why?
How many people here have a stress-free life? Right? So, that's one of the things that I didn't get very far into is stress. Stress is actually going to be one of those things, our workouts are actually stressful on the body. In a positive way if we recover the right way. But stress, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, if it's with work and it's something more on the negative side, or even if it's something you're anxious and excited about, that's going to affect your nervous system. It's going to affect your heart rate.
You have to be laying down.
I recommend it. MyZone says to be seated still or laying down. Since there is a postural effect of heart rate, I don't know why they don't just go all the way to laying down.
Evening is my only time.
So if you can legit,
Morning, forget about it. I have to get up and get going. There's no time.
and that's where we just have to look at it and say, like, is it a situation where you need to pick a Sunday and do that? Maybe then that's, for most people that works. If you can never do it, then I recommend, like, sit down for like an hour, like, watch something not stressful on TV. Like, don't watch.
What's Walking Dead?
Yeah. I was gonna say don't watch 24 and then like partial like tension, partial like where's Jack, but yeah. So I mean, you might just have to do that. Do it at night. Any other questions?
When are we supposed to take the monitor off exactly?
I recommend as soon as we do the huddle, because the workout doesn't count till you high five. Right after that.
Okay.
And that's another thing. Thank you for asking that, because if you come to us and I don't understand what some people do in their personal life. Like, I'm boring, but some people that shit on for 4 hours and there's random spikes and stuff. I don't even want to know. But it's as the graph gets longer, it's harder to see what the timing is, and it's harder for the coaches to help you out. Like, we are willing to help you, but if we have to sit there and dissect it, and we know you have 300 reps, and we have to do math to figure out what was from the workout, like, we're just going to ask you to try again. So please take it off right away. Please don't wear it on your way here. Like, it's going to just also, I mean, maybe put the unit on if you don't want to have to, like, get, like, private bathroom time to put it on. But then, like, put the unit on right when we start.
Do you have extra bands? One's like wearing out and it's.
Yeah, we sell bands. Yeah.
The monitor, one of the posts has like a little copper pin. Isn't that the one that actually like activates it? So you can technically put it on one of those, one of the snaps, and then get here and then pop it on. Once you pop on the other one, I think that's what actually triggers it.
That's what I do all the time.
Science.
I have it halfway on,
Yeah.
and then when I'm ready to work out, I just fix it and pop it
Yeah.
on.
As long as that's secure enough, I don't know, because I've never done that. As long as you're not going to lose it.
For those people that just can't, don't have the time to run into the bathroom.
Yeah.
I just do it out.
I mean, you could do it. I mean, not for nothing. Unless you walk here, like, you could put it on right in the car, too. I'm not talking like you have to, like, put one foot on the turf and then put it on. Just don't have it on for an hour before in your commute. Right. Any other questions? And guys, please, if they're MyZone related questions, just ask them now, and I'd rather tell you later. I'd rather tell you we'll check later if it's more individualized. Because everybody always does the like rush up and try to ask you afterwards. If you're really frightened, ask your neighbor to ask it for you.
I'm always hot, like I'm always between like yellow and red, like no matter what I'm doing. As soon as I go in a half meal, I'm shoot to the yellow before I make a movement.
Okay.
So, like, does that mean I should just really lay around a lot?
Yes, because that's exactly
I can lay in digits all day. And
That's good stuff. So, I mean, that's a situation where, I mean, knowing a little bit more about you, like, sleep is a challenge for you. Like, the one thing, I don't know if I have it written down here. So, Charlie Weingroff said, sleep is when motor skill acquisition goes from adjustment to adaptation. Right? So, sleep is the time when all the adaptations happen. So, if we're not getting quality sleep, I would rather your effort go towards quality sleep than nutrition and other things that we need to focus on. Because if that's not happening, none of this is going to work as effectively. I'm not saying give up, but none of it's going to work as effectively. The whole sleep issue, most people that I've chatted with about it, it's not, well, just turn off your iPad. Like, yeah, that works. The people that legitimately struggle, I understand that it's not that easy, but why not continue to strive towards it?
It's true, you gotta have separate bedrooms, because it makes a difference. Since my husband retired, I haven't slept for an hour.
I have so much to look forward to.
I am telling you.
I have good
it's-
questions.
I'm always in the red and the yellow, I never was, now it's all the time.
So if you have home situations that you need to work on. I'm gonna just start calling and complaining like they called and complained to us. But, what?
Yeah, you don't know.
Oh, I have stories.
5:45 class is not making enough noise.
Kelly, just come back.
Everybody jump!
Whoa, wait a minute.
You're gonna piss off the people in the basement. So for you, Amy, we'd want to do the opposite. Find the things that bring you back down, but also start to scale things back. So like Mike was working with somebody, and like I said, if Halo gets you up there really high, then maybe AR press doesn't. If half kneel is something that gets you up really high, then maybe that's your big move. For you, maybe that's your squat or your lunge, and then your mid-range move or your more like corrective or core move is quadruped. So maybe you crawl, maybe you do a quadruped diagonal. Maybe we find other choices like that. If rowing gets you up there, super easy. And this is what's cool about it. Like this is also probably why the only friends I have pay to come here. But this stuff is super fun. Like we can actually start to individualize your own program within our system if we have that information. So if inverted rows get you up there really fast, can we do a half kneel row? Can we do a quadruped pull? Like we can just continue to scale back in complexity and take joints out of the equation. So let's just mess around with it. I'm usually here when you train with me. That's fun. Any other questions?
If you go up to red or yellow and then rest in between and you do get down to green or blue, is it okay to get up to the red and yellow?
Good question. I meant to go over this. So if you're doing some big lifts, you're doing some riskier stuff here, heavy squats, heavy deadlifts, overhead presses, or even more like skill-based stuff like kettlebell swings, you definitely want to get back down to the blue before that move. I don't care what your goal is. You're just not going to get better at it, and you're not going to stay safe. They don't tell you to rest 3 to 5 minutes because they want you to be bored when you're doing really heavy loads. It's because you need to do it safely and effectively. So get down to blue before your big lift. And this is something that we can actually, if anyone wants to look at the board when we're done, we can go over like I would with individuals, like how we can start to put things together with that.
But it doesn't mean you should stop doing those, you just have to come back down.
If it's a move you're proficient at, like let's say you get up, like you're proficient at swings, you don't get hurt, your skill's really good, but the weight you chose, the reps you're working on, get you up in the red. Finish your set as long as you still have your breath, as long as you still have alignment with integrity under load. As long as you have those things, finish, then go. But you have to be strong enough to do that. Like you have to have integrity in your movement. You have to have a big enough.
When you're ready, I was just gonna say something about, I didn't want to interrupt you.
But I'm slow, so just go. He tried to be so polite. He was like.
I was like, don't notice me yet, just like, no. Just like, notice when you do swing that you don't rest enough, can you squeeze your butt tight? Are your quads tight? Are your abs tight? Because I notice that. When I don't rest enough, I can't hit the lockouts. Because I'm too tired, I didn't let myself recover. So like, just watch that stuff. And you might notice that. Just like the runner. It's too tired, can't keep performing. That's it.
So squeeze your butt every step when you run. Yeah, and that's like what are the intricacies of the movement? Like a get up, for example. Can you breathe at each stop? If you can't, you have no business touching that weight. Like it's not an ego contest, you know. So same thing with the swing. If you have those checkpoints that to dorky trainer guy is alignment with integrity under load. If we have those checkpoints, feet driving in the floor, all the other points that Rob said, if you're missing it, then rest. Otherwise, rock the hell out. We want you to go hard.
I tend to hit the red quite a bit.
Yep.
And, but I do notice that when I get the email from MyZone that it doesn't necessarily truly correspond with what I saw on the board.
That's so true, I noticed the same
Because
thing.
I'll hit the red, and I'm thinking like, when I get that email, it's gonna be
All red,
red,
it's not.
yellow,
Yeah.
blue, red, yellow, blue, but then I
Right.
get there and it's like, oh, I hit a bunch of yellow.
Yeah, the shit really doesn't work. We just wanted to sell.
Okay, cool.
You know what you said? If you keep your harp on and you're doing the workout, it actually syncs better.
So yeah, two things. One, well, three things. We are moving this. We're gonna make it more central. Not quite sure where yet because we just have medicine ball wall everywhere. Yeah, we're gonna put it on the ceiling, and it's gonna come down, and the coach is gonna come out of the basement.
Black Sabbath.
So excited. But yeah, I mean, what it comes down to with that, yeah, connect to your phone because it will track easier. You're not gonna have dead zones in here. Like if you have Bluetooth headphones on and you go out of range, your music isn't gonna sound as good or it's gonna disconnect. But I mean, beyond that, that tells me that you probably are actually in pretty good shape in terms of conditioning because you're dropping down fast. If you're not spending time, if you're getting to red and then dropping quick, it's going to register as yellow if you're in the yellow for 50 seconds in that minute. So that's a good sign. The better shape you're in, the better your cardio base, the better your work capacity and strength, you can get all sorts of crazy and then, you know, rest pretty quickly. Any other questions?
Oh my God.
I beat that kid at one.
Talk about stress.
Cool. So, yes. So if you haven't tested your resting heart rate, it's a guess. So the one slide, I'll try to remember to put it up, and then somebody will tell me I didn't, and then we'll eventually put it up. There's a max, whoever said that, thank you. There's a max heart rate equation that they use. I don't even know why I brought it up, you're not going to be able to read it. But they have an equation, they test your max heart rate. Has anyone gotten max heart rate emails that increase? Yeah, because you proved your heart won't explode when you get to that point. That's just a guess, right? And by the way, I'm kidding, like I don't think anyone's heart's actually going to explode. In terms of the resting heart rate, if you don't put that in, all the other stuff is still a guess too. The resting heart rate doesn't actually affect where you are in terms of your zones, but it's going to affect how we coach you. So if your resting heart rate shows elevated, athletes or people that are in really good shape are generally in that 40 to 60 range for a resting heart rate.
What's the average resting heart rate like? Because
We
49,
can't-
I'm below that.
We can't actually, so this is percent, right? We can't actually tell you what the average is. It's just like what's the average weight in this country.
Right.
Do you want to be average weight?
I don't want to
Like-
be average anyway.
Yeah. I like
You're
that.
not, honey.
The face that went with that, Sandy, was good. So I can't tell you what average is, but I can tell you that people that are in good shape are in that generally in that like 40 to 60 range. That's why when people are over 60, I give them certain guidelines as to how they should change how they approach their workouts. Like there is a high number at which like
Why it changes when you get older, it goes up more, what?
I mean everything changes, age factors into it, but the bottom line is I care about what your number says for how old you are right now.
Right.
So just like is age going to affect fat loss? Sure, but you can't get younger, so let's just deal with what we have. Right? I mean, I don't know how. I went bald when I was 16, so I was screwed anyway.
No, I see pictures of it a little bit later than that.
I held on.
Is the resting heart rate somewhere in the app?
I'm not sure. I can pull it up on the back end. It's in settings. That's another thing too. Add all your metrics from the in-body. When you get an in-body measurement, and if you haven't been doing it, we haven't been telling people, but go into your stats and change all of that. That's going to affect the numbers you got. So change your metrics according to what the in-body says. So you can put in, I know you can put in weight. I'm pretty sure body fat percentage is in there, muscle mass.
My stats it goes under?
Probably. It's not the calendar.
Settings, and then your profile has got your resting heart rate.
Is that where we would go into if we see the resting heart rate? If you're already done it, we're saying we should redo it if we haven't done it in like 3 months?
Yeah.
So do you have to push in the settings or you could just?
No, so with the resting heart rate, you just go through that same process. It knows automatically that if you're not moving and there's no spikes and you wear it for 10 minutes, it assumes you're testing your resting heart rate. Any other questions? Cool. Get more wine. Thanks for coming, guys.
Oh my God, my weight